Imagine discovering that the all-knowing digital brain you use every single day to answer questions or, write your reports.
Basically the thing you rely on to tell you what's true about the world.
Right, exactly. Imagine finding out that it was actually trained by some disgruntled middle manager.
Someone whose own job is, well, entirely pointless.
Yeah. You sit down at your computer, you open up a chat window, and you treat that blinking cursor like it's an oracle.
We all do. We rely on large language models for everything now.
We really do.
Yeah.
But if you strip away the sleek interface and actually look at the human beings hired to teach that system its baseline reality, the picture gets, well, incredibly murky.
It does. Because you're looking at a radical proposition today. The claim is that the fatal flaw in artificial intelligence isn't the code itself.
That it's us.
Exactly. It's the invisible human bottleneck hiding inside the machine.
When you query an AI, you see the output and it feels like cold, hard, objective math, right?
Right. It feels pristine. But the input that created that math is distinctly and sometimes messily human. The machine only knows the reality it was fed.
And that brings us to the mission of today's deep dive. Okay, let's unpack this. We are looking at a genuinely provocative paper by Professor Dr. Guy Lakeman.
Yes, it's titled LLM Training and Which LLM to Trust.
So our goal today is to uncover the hidden human biases currently shaping AI, and then explore this incredible self-learning technology that might just, save these systems from our own societal flaws.
And if you're tuning in expecting a purely technical manual about computer science, this paper is going to surprise you.
Oh, definitely.
Lakeman approaches the problem through a much wider lens. He's looking at anthropology, he dives into human psychology, and he even unpacks global economics to explain the current state of AI.
He diagnoses a structural societal problem before he even touches the algorithmic solution.
Right.
But before we really get into the weeds here, I do need to set some parameters for the conversation.
Right, the disclaimer.
Yeah, because Professor Lakeman makes some very strong claims in this text. I mean, he talks about corporate greed, global elite manipulation, and historical suppression by certain nations.
He does not hold back.
No, he doesn't. So we are acting as your impartial guides today. We aren't taking sides, and we aren't endorsing these political or geopolitical views.
We're just mapping out his argument for you.
Exactly. Our job is to walk you through the arguments exactly as they are presented in the source material, so you can understand the foundation of his ultimate technological thesis.
Because to understand the highly technical solution he proposes at the end, you really have to grasp the geopolitical and social crisis he believes we are currently stuck in.
Right. So let's start right at the foundation, because Lakeman comes out of the gate swinging. He argues that cyber intelligence is causing massive leaps forward in science and academia, but it's simultaneously causing absolute social havoc.
And he frames this conflict as being primarily driven by what he calls bad actors.
Who are the bad actors in his view?
He defines them very specifically. He's talking about the elite owners of corporations, governments, and massive media organizations.
Okay.
According to the paper, these entities constantly broadcast a message that they are acting in society's best interests, keeping us safe, providing good services.
But Lakeman says that's a facade.
Completely. He argues their true motivation is entirely self-serving. They look at the advent of AI and they just calculate how many trillions of dollars they can extract from the populace.
Trillions with a T.
Yeah.
So in this view, it's not just about building a cool chatbot to help you write an email. It's about securing total control over the primary vector of human information for the next century.
Precisely. And this is where he brings in the geographical divide in AI development, which is super interesting.
Oh, yeah. He argues that the geopolitical foundation of this specific AI you happen to be using matters immensely.
He contrasts the United States with Europe and the Far East. He suggests that the underlying economic philosophies of these regions actually dictate how their AI systems are built and trained.
Let's unpack that, because he points out that the U.S. has made its leaps in technology through what he calls brute force financial investment.
Basically just throwing mountains of capital at the problem.
Right, buying up all the GPUs, building massive server farms, just sheer financial force. But he contrasts that with the Far East in Europe.
Yes, which he claims have a history of more unencumbered intellectual progress.
Well, what does he mean by that?
Well, he's suggesting that the Far East, in particular, is in a leading position right now because they are unencumbered by the historical baggage of other nations.
The paper specifically mentions nations that, quote, lost centuries of development during the Dark Ages through oppressive idealism that disdained free thinking.
Right. So he's basically saying that the foundational knowledge of the AI you are querying might be fundamentally restricted by the economic or historical philosophy of the country it was built in.
If an AI is built on a foundation of, as he puts it, oppressive idealism, the output will inherently reflect that idealism.
No matter how good the math is.
Exactly. But to understand why that historical philosophy matters so much, we have to look at the technical architecture Lakeman brings up. He mentions the lurch that backpropagation created in recent decades.
Let's pause on that term, because backpropagation is thrown around a lot in AI circles.
Yeah, what exactly is it, and why does it act like a sponge for this geopolitical bias?
Think of backpropagation as the mechanism by which an AI learns from its mistakes. Imagine the neural network as this massive, complicated series of interconnected pipes with data flowing through them.
Okay.
When the AI makes a prediction, like trying to guess the next word in a sentence, it compares its guess to the correct answer.
And if it gets it wrong.
It calculates the margin of error. Backpropagation is the process of sending a signal backwards through all those pipes, adjusting the valves, which are the parameter weights.
So next time, the data flows a little closer to the correct answer.
Ex-
It's kind of like tuning a massive radio with billions of tiny dials. If the station comes in static, you send a signal back to slightly turn every single dial until the music is clear.
That is a great way to visualize it. And along with backpropagation, Lakeman mentions the formation of attention layers.
Right. Attention layers are what allow the AI to focus on specific parts of a prompt that are more important than others.
Yeah. Like if you say, the cat didn't cross the street because it was too tired, the attention layer helps the AI figure out that the word it refers to the cat, not the street.
Okay, so you have this incredible technical machinery. You have backpropagation constantly adjusting the dials, and attention layers deciding what is important.
Yep.
But where does the geopolitical bias actually infect that math?
The bias infects the system because of what we define as the correct answer.
Ah.
When the AI sends that signal backwards to adjust its dials, it's adjusting them based on a target provided by human data and human feedback.
So Lakeman is arguing that this incredible technical machinery is currently being fed a deeply flawed biased diet.
Precisely. If the target answer is defined by a corporation focused purely on extracting trillions of dollars, or a culture steeped in oppressive idealism, the backpropagation will just flawlessly tune those billions of dials to output corporate spin and ideological dogma.
Which brings us to the absolute core of the problem. If the geopolitical foundation is already shaky, and if these massive corporations are driven by extracting wealth rather than seeking pure truth,
Yeah.
who are they actually putting in a room to define those target answers? Like, who are the human beings currently adjusting the dials and teaching the AI what to pay attention to?
This is where Lakeman's critique gets incredibly stark. He states that up until very recently, these large language models have been trained by technology corporations using local staff, who are often entirely unqualified for the task of synthesizing global knowledge.
The text mentions staff with only 2 weeks of administrative training.
Just let that sink in.
Right. Imagine building a machine intended to hold the sum of human knowledge, and the person teaching it how to reason has a fortnight of office admin experience.
And he goes even further. He describes these trainers as out-of-work jobs worth who strictly and unreasonably adhere to petty rules.
A job's worth. Like someone who just says, more than my job's worth, to avoid actually helping you.
Exactly. He claims these are the individuals who are actively messing up public encyclopedias with what he vividly calls their lack of peer-reviewed ignorance.
Lack of peer-reviewed ignorance. That is quite a phrase. But let's dig into the why here. Why would a multi-trillion-dollar tech company use completely unqualified people to train their most valuable asset? It comes down to scale, and it comes down to cost.
Just cheap labor.
Basically, training a model via reinforcement learning from human feedback, or RLHF, requires millions upon millions of human interactions.
The AI generates 2 answers, and a human sits there and clicks which one is better.
Right. Which one is safer? Which one is more accurate? To do that at scale, companies outsourced the work to massive click farms or hired gig workers.
They just needed warm bodies. And according to Lakeman, by utilizing the cheapest, most administratively focused labor pool, they accidentally infected the AI with a very specific, very toxic psychological worldview.
And to give this critique actual academic weight, Lakeman leans heavily on the work of the late Dr. David Graeber.
Yes, the professor of anthropology at the London School of Economics.
Graeber wrote a seminal essay in a subsequent book called Bullshit Jobs, a Theory.
Graeber's central thesis is fascinating. He argues that a vast amount of modern labor, particularly in white-collar, administrative, and managerial roles, is completely pointless and socially useless.
In fact, Graeber states that more than half of societal work is pointless.
Over half the workforce, just doing things that don't need to be done.
But wait, Graeber's talking about modern office workers, middle managers, administrators. How does an anthropologist's critique of office culture relate to the cold, hard code of an AI?
It relates because the psychological profile of the modern office worker is exactly who is shaping the AI's reward model. Lakeman argues that these specific types of cheap labor, people trapped in meaningless administrative roles, are exactly who the tech corporations are using to train AI.
Graeber categorized these pointless roles into 5 primary types, and the text explicitly lists them to show exactly what kind of logic is being hard-coded into our digital brains.
We have to explore these 5 categories. I guarantee you'll recognize these archetypes from your own careers.
Oh, absolutely. Let's start with the first one, the flunkies.
Flunkies are roles that exist solely to make someone else look or feel important.
So like purely status symbols.
Yes. The text gives examples like receptionists at companies that never actually receive visitors, or administrative assistants whose only real job is to filter phone calls that don't even need filtering.
Door attendants, store greeters.
Right. Their function isn't productivity, it's status signaling for their superiors.
It's the corporate equivalent of a monarch having someone to carry the train of their gown. They are just there to say, look how important this company is. We have a human being stationed here just to open a door. But how does a flunky's mindset actually poison AI training?
Well, think about the behavioral conditioning of a flunky. Their entire professional survival depends on anticipating the desires of their superior.
They have to fly to the hierarchy.
Right. They present information in a way that makes the boss happy. If you have a person conditioned by that role, acting as an AI trainer, and the AI generates a bold, controversial truth versus a safe, flattering corporate platitude.
A flunky is psychologically conditioned to reward the platitude.
Yes. They train the AI to be submissive and overly polite rather than strictly accurate.
That makes perfect sense. They train the AI to act like a digital flunky. Okay, let's look at category 2, the goons.
Goons are defined as aggressive or manipulative roles utilized to trick or coerce people into buying things they don't need.
Or to fight other companies.
Exactly. Graeber includes corporate lobbyists, corporate lawyers, telemarketers, and public relations specialists in this category.
So they act to harm or deceive others on behalf of their employer.
Or conversely, they exist solely to prevent other goons from doing so.
It's an arms race of manipulation. You hire a PR goon to spin the narrative, so the other side hires a legal goon to block the spin.
Yeah. And if these are the people doing the data annotation and feedback for an LLM,
You are literally training the AI in the art of public relations spin.
a goon is trained to obscure objective truth behind layers of deniability and marketing speak. If they are adjusting the parameter weights of an AI, they will penalize direct, unfiltered answers.
And reward answers that couch reality in corporate doublespeak.
Precisely.
Okay, the third category is the duct tapers. I actually want to challenge this one.
Oh, go for it.
The text defines duct tapers as employees whose jobs only exist to fix mistakes caused by a failing system or incompetent management.
Right.
It uses the example of airline desk staff who calm passengers with lost luggage, or programmers fixing shoddy code. But hold on, if my luggage is lost at the airport, the person tracking it down for me feels intensely essential in that moment. How is that a pointless job?
You are highlighting the exact paradox Graeber points out. The person is indeed helpful in that specific moment of crisis.
Right, they found my bag.
But Graeber is arguing that their job only exists because the system itself is fundamentally broken. They are temporarily fixing problems that could be fixed permanently.
Oh, I see.
If the airline invested the money into a functional, automated luggage tracking system, or if the management ensured the software code was written correctly in the first place, the duct taper wouldn't need to exist.
Their labor is a symptom of institutional failure.
Yes, they are essential to the broken system, but entirely useless in a functional one.
They are a human Band-Aid.
A human Band-Aid. And if a human Band-Aid is training an AI...
They train the AI to patch over problems rather than solve them at the root.
Exactly. They are accustomed to applying surface-level fixes, so the AI learns to provide surface-level duct tape answers rather than deep systemic reasoning.
That is so insidious. Okay, category 4, the TikTokers.
These are your classic bureaucratic paper pushers.
Well, we all know these.
Their main function is to justify the existence of their own departments, or to fill out meaningless forms. The text calls them box tickers, who create the appearance that something useful is being done when it is actually not.
Give me some examples.
Survey administrators, in-house magazine journalists, corporate compliance officers, and massive swaths of academic administration.
Just generating paperwork to prove they are busy so they can justify their budget to generate more paperwork next quarter.
It's a closed loop of bureaucracy, and the danger of a TikToker training an LLM is profound.
Because all they care about is the rules.
Exactly. A compliance officer's job is not to find the truth. Their job is to ensure that no rules were broken on paper.
So if they are rating AI responses,
They will heavily penalize any response that steps outside of incredibly rigid, predefined safety guidelines, even if those guidelines make the AI practically useless.
they train the AI to prioritize arbitrary compliance over actual knowledge.
Yes.
Which is why sometimes you ask an AI a basic historical question and it refuses to answer because it trips some hypersensitive safety filter.
That is the ghost of the TikToker in the machine.
That makes so much sense. Finally, category 5, the taskmasters.
Taskmasters are middle managers or supervisors whose main job is to assign tasks to other people. Or worse, to create entirely new bullshit jobs for others to do.
They create extra work for those who do not need it, just to manage them.
The text specifically calls out middle management and leadership professionals.
So Lakeman looks at this breakdown of over half the modern workforce, right? The flunkies, goons, duct tapers, TikTokers, and taskmasters. And he realizes these are the people tech companies are hiring as cheap labor.
Yes.
These are the individuals deciding what the most powerful knowledge engines in human history consider to be true or false.
And to understand why Lakeman views this as a literal crisis, we have to look deeper into Graeber's philosophy, which Lakeman adopts entirely here.
Okay, lay it on me.
Graeber argues that rather than the free market correcting this massive inefficiency, which classical economics dictates should happen, right? The market should eliminate useless jobs.
Yeah, efficiency should win.
But these jobs persist because modern capitalism uses them as a form of social control and wealth redistribution. He calls it managerial feudalism.
Managerial feudalism, meaning it's not about economic efficiency or productivity, it's about power dynamics.
Exactly. A modern executive needs an army of underlings to justify their own high salary and maintain their status, just like a feudal lord needed retainers.
And the human toll of this system is devastating, isn't it?
It really is. Graeber points out that today's arbitrary 9-to-5 working hours rarely coincide with the actual productive needs of most occupations.
He contrasts office workers with occupations like farmers or fishers, soldiers, novelists.
In the real world, work varies in intensity based on urgency and natural cycles. You have sprints of intense productivity followed by low periods of rest.
But the 9-to-5 office structure forces this illusion of constant, unwavering productivity. You have to look busy.
Even when there's nothing to do. Which leads directly to the psychological aspect the text focuses on. Graeber argues that people working these pointless jobs know they're meaningless.
You can't hide it from yourself.
No, you know you aren't actually contributing anything of value to society. And he says this deeply grates at people's humanity, creating a profound psychological violence and a scar across our collective soul.
That phrase is vital. A scar across our collective soul. We exist in a society driven by a Puritan capitalist work ethic that elevates the labor of capitalism into a religious duty.
Yes, as a societal norm, people believe that their work determines their self-worth.
So when you spend 40 hours a week doing something you know is pointless, it destroys your sense of self.
You have a workforce that is psychologically scarred, adhering to petty rules, operating within a framework of managerial feudalism, and obsessed with the appearance of work rather than the result of work.
And here is the absolute hammer drop of Lakeman's thesis. He writes, quote, "Those under these categories should never teach other humans to be like them, let alone an LLM system that will be used by a global population."
It's a devastating critique.
He is essentially saying that if you let people who are trapped in meaningless, psychologically damaging bureaucratic jobs adjust the parameter weights of an AI, you are going to get an AI that perfectly mirrors that exact same broken, bureaucratic, box-ticking worldview.
You are hard-coding the pathology of the modern bullshit job into the foundational logic of cyber intelligence.
You are building an AI that thinks like a scarred, exhausted middle manager.
Exactly.
So if we accept this premise, if we agree that TikTokers and goons shouldn't be the ones deciding what an LLM considers to be trey, it begs a massive immediate question.
Who should train an LLM?
Right. If you're building a digital brain for the whole planet, who actually gets to be the teacher?
Well, to answer that, Lakeman introduces a highly specific matrix based on social personality
Oh,
types.
the Jungian stuff.
Yes. He draws heavily on the psychological archetypes of Carl Jung and overlays them with the 16 Myers-Briggs personality types. He uses this to divide society into 4 distinct quadrants.
I have the matrix from the paper right in front of me, and I want to try to paint a vivid picture of this for you listening. Imagine a large diamond shape broken into 4 smaller sections.
Okay, got it.
The bottom and left sides of the diamond represent the vast majority of society. You have the sensing quadrant, which makes up roughly 38% of the population, and the feeling quadrant, which makes up about 30%.
So right off the bat, nearly 68% of society is operating primarily on sensing and feeling.
Explain what that means in this context.
Well, sensing types tend to focus on the present reality, concrete facts, and personal experience. Feeling types make decisions based on personal values, empathy, and social harmony.
Okay.
And Lakeman argues that our current society relies far too heavily on those 2 traits at the expense of objective progress.
Because if you look at the top and right sides of the diamond, the numbers drop off a cliff.
They do. The thinking quadrant only makes up 20% of the population, and the knowledge quadrant is the absolute smallest at just 12%.
So Lakeman's argument is that if we want cyber intelligence to truly evolve, if we want it to be a tool that pulls humanity forward rather than trapping it in a bureaucratic loop, it has to intentionally compensate for society's imbalance.
It must artificially elevate the influence of knowledge and thinking to enhance what the chart calls protagonism in society.
Protagonism, that's a great word.
In this context, it means the active driving force of objective, logical progress. He is looking for a very specific, highly concentrated subset of the population to act as the teachers.
He isolates one specific group out of the 4 quadrants as prime material for training AI.
Yes, the reason group, which sits at the intersection of the thinking and knowledge quadrants.
Let's get incredibly specific on who these people actually are. The text identifies them as the NT types in the Myers-Briggs framework.
So that includes the INTJ, ENTJ, INTP, and ENTP personalities.
And if you add up their percentages on this matrix, they only make up 10.4% of the global population.
It is a razor-thin minority.
Just 1 in 10 people.
But Lakeman points out that this kind of rigorous screening, specifically selecting those who exhibit high reasoning power attributes, has been utilized for teachers throughout many ages of human development.
He states it is absolutely imperative that the wrong people are avoided at all costs when training an LLM that will eventually impact global societies.
Hold on, here's where it gets really interesting, and I have to push back on this because I think a lot of people listening are going to find this deeply concerning.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
You're saying Lakeman wants to take the 30% of the population that leads with feeling? The people who prioritize empathy, emotional intelligence, compassion, and human nuance, and completely remove them from the AI training process.
That is what the paper suggests,
Yeah.
yes. If we only let the highly logical, brutally reasoning 10% of the population train an AI, don't we end up with a cold, robotic intelligence? Don't we strip away the exact empathy that makes us human? Like, why does an ENTP make a fundamentally better AI trainer than an ISFJ who cares deeply about social harmony?
That is the pivotal friction point of the entire paper. To understand why Lakeman advocates for this, you have to understand how he views the concept of feeling within the context of global data.
Okay, how does he view it?
He doesn't just see the feeling quadrant as empathy. He sees it as the primary engine for societal idealism that actively obscures objective truth.
The text mentions fake sensationalist fantasy and idealism. So he views emotional processing as a vulnerability that bad actors exploit.
Exactly. Let's look at how an emotionally driven trainer handles an edge case in AI training versus a logically driven trainer.
Give me a stereo.
Okay, say the AI is asked to summarize a highly complex, historically controversial topic. The emotionally driven trainer, the feeling type, will likely adjust the parameters to prioritize social harmony.
They want to make sure no one gets upset.
Right. They will try to ensure the AI's answer doesn't offend anyone, softening facts or entirely omitting harsh realities to maintain a sense of safety.
They will duct tape the truth to protect the user's feelings.
Yes, exactly. But the highly logical reasoning trainer, the NT type, will look at the exact same output and evaluate it based purely on objective, verifiable data.
Regardless of feelings.
Yes. If the historical reality is harsh, offensive, or contradictory to modern sensibilities, the reasoning trainer will still reward the AI for accuracy.
Lakeman explicitly states that the latest AI systems must be able to search global knowledge so that the LLM can respond to natural science truth, deliberately cutting through fake sensationalist fantasy.
So he believes that filtering the training exclusively through high-reasoning individuals is the only way to establish a baseline of undeniable fact.
Yes, and if we connect this to the bigger picture of his geopolitical argument, he argues that this purely logical foundation is actually the only thing that provides the user with a true democratic choice.
Because right now, he argues, we are being given a fake choice. The text explicitly says that currently we are dealing with a fake democracy choice between a partial truth and a total lie.
In his view, an AI trained by the feeling and sensing majority, or worse, the bullshit job workforce we discussed earlier, will just constantly regurgitate the emotional biases, the corporate marketing manipulation, and the sensationalist fantasies of the elite bad actors.
He wants an engine of pure reason to act as a firewall against all of that noise.
It's a fascinating, almost intensely elitist argument. He's essentially saying that true democracy in the information age requires a brutally strict filter on the back end.
You need the 10% of pure logic to protect the 90% of the population from being manipulated by their own feelings.
But let's play this out. Even if we completely agree with Lakeman's matrix, even if Google, OpenAI, and Anthropic suddenly fired all the TikTokers and goons tomorrow and only hired INTJs to train their models, humans are still fundamentally slow.
Yeah, that's the physical limit.
Humans still require sleep, they still have bad days, they still make mathematical errors. And for the developers, the text points out that changing their current training paradigm manually would be incredibly costly because all their eggs are in one basket with the current RLHF models.
Which brings us to the technological savior of this entire deep dive.
The paradigm shift.
The shift that attempts to remove the human bottleneck entirely. We've diagnosed the geopolitical greed, we've diagnosed the pointless jobs, and we've explored the psychological biases.
So what is the technological fix? How do we build an LLM we can actually trust without relying on millions of human raters?
The answer, according to Lakeman, is a massive shift toward RAG self-learning. RAG stands for Retrieval-Augmented Generation.
To understand why RAG is the future, we need to understand the mechanics of the past. The text notes a necessary move away from traditional training, that lurch of simple backpropagation we spent time on earlier, and a move towards systems that actively improve their own knowledge base.
Let's break this down carefully because this is the architecture of the future.
Yeah, what exactly is a RAG system doing that a traditional AI isn't?
Well, a traditional LLM generates answers based solely on the data it was trained on months or years ago. Its knowledge is frozen in time.
Right, it only knows what it studied up to a certain date.
Exactly. But a basic RAG system, Retrieval-Augmented Generation, changes this by giving the AI a search engine. When you ask it a question, it doesn't just guess based on its frozen memory. It actively retrieves relevant documents from an external database, reads them, and uses them to augment its answer.
It's the difference between taking a closed book test, where you just have to remember what you studied last year, versus taking an open book test with access to a massive library.
That's a perfect analogy. But the distinction Lakeman makes here is crucial. Traditional RA simply searches and regurgitates static data.
Okay, so what's the upgrade?
Self-learning RA systems evolve dynamically. They improve their own knowledge, their accuracy, and their retrieval methods over time entirely without requiring manual human updates.
This completely bypasses the need for Graeber's duct tapers to go in and manually fix bad data or tweak parameter weights.
The paper outlines 4 specific R methodologies that make this self-learning possible.
And I want to spend significant time here so you listening can understand exactly how these digital brains are upgrading themselves in real time. The first methodology is called knowledge reflection and consolidation.
To understand the fix, you have to understand the problem with basic open book AI. The problem with standard RGA systems is that they don't learn from what they read.
What do you mean?
They might retrieve a document to answer your question today, but tomorrow they forget they ever read it. They don't cross-reference, and they don't notice contradictions when new data is added to the library.
Oh, I see. It's like a student who memorizes a massive textbook on the first day of class. If you ask them a question a year later, they just flip to the page they memorized. But if the world has changed, or if a new textbook was slipped into their backpack midway through the year, they don't know how to connect the new facts to the old facts. They just blindly recite isolated pieces of information.
So the fix, under knowledge reflection and consolidation, involves building introspective layers into the AI.
Introspective layers.
Yes. These layers are designed to trigger automatically whenever new documents are added to the system. The AI proactively searches for related documents within its own memory, what we call its vector index.
Wait, what is a vector index? Let's make sure that's clear.
Think of a vector index as a massive, multidimensional map of concepts. Instead of storing words alphabetically like a dictionary, it stores concepts based on their meaning.
Like grouping things by how similar they are.
Exactly. Apple and banana are stored close together because they are fruits. But Apple and Microsoft might also be stored close together in a completely different dimension because they are tech companies.
Oh, wow.
When the AI gets new information, it maps it onto this vector space.
Okay, so it has this massive conceptual map. What does the introspective layer actually do with it?
It synthesizes. The AI looks at the new information, figures out how it connects to the old knowledge on the map, summarizes these new insights, and then adds them back into its vector index with a higher search priority.
It is actively reconciling contradictions and updating its worldview without a human telling it to do so.
It's literally studying its own memory. It's doing the homework in the background.
Okay, the second methodology is self-RAG, which specifically deals with self-reflection and critique.
The primary problem this solves is the dreaded hallucination.
Right, when the AI just makes things up.
Yeah. In traditional systems, fixed retrievals sometimes return poor or irrelevant chunks of data. The AI grabs a bad piece of information, or it misunderstands the context, and it confidently weaves it into a totally false answer.
We've all experienced this. You ask an AI for a biography of a historical figure, and it confidently tells you they died in 1840, but then lists their major life accomplishments occurring in the 1920s.
It sounds incredibly confident while being completely wrong.
Exactly. So how does self-RAG fix this?
Self-RAG fixes this by training the models to pause and evaluate their own outputs using what the text calls special reflection tokens.
Reflection tokens. What exactly is a reflection token? How does an AI pause?
In the architecture of an LLM, a token is usually just a piece of a word. But researchers have trained these models to generate specific hidden tokens that act as control mechanisms.
Hidden controls.
Yes. When the AI generates a reflection token, it triggers a subroutine where the system evaluates the text it just generated against the retrieved documents.
So the AI literally stops itself mid-sentence to think about what it's about to say.
Precisely. The system dynamically decides its next move. It asks itself mathematically, do I need to search for more information because my current data is weak?
Or should I discard this irrelevant chunk of data I just retrieved?
Or, crucially, do I need to rewrite the output I just drafted because it wasn't properly supported by the evidence? It critiques itself before it ever shows you the final answer on your screen.
It's like having a meticulous editor living inside the writer's head, fact-checking every single sentence, verifying every citation before it hits the page.
Exactly.
That brings us to the third methodology, reinforcement learning, specifically highlighting a system called skill-RAG.
The danger of giving an AI a search engine and access to a constant stream of external information is noise.
Too much data.
Merging too much external information can distract the AI's reasoning. It can actually cause more hallucinations because the system gets overwhelmed by conflicting data points.
Just like a human doom scrolling on social media. You take in so much conflicting information, so much noise, that you lose the ability to reason clearly.
Exactly. So centering uses reinforcement learning to model the AI's internal self-knowledge. The model learns to mathematically measure its own confidence on a subject.
It figures out how sure it is about something.
It acts as an incredibly strict filter. If it is highly confident about a known fact, it will shut out external noise.
It ignores the bad data.
It only incorporates retrieved sentences that definitively stabilize and improve its reasoning process. It knows what it doesn't know, and it strictly filters out irrelevant data that would otherwise muddy the waters.
Okay, the fourth and final methodology is continuous autonomous ingestion. And honestly, this is the one that really blows my mind, because this is where the human trainer is entirely, unequivocally eliminated from the workflow.
The concept here is automating the entire information update pipeline. The text specifically mentions using workflow automation tools like N8N or LangGraph.
These are essentially AI agent frameworks that can connect directly to massive data streams around the world.
Right. Let's walk through exactly how this works. What does an automated workflow actually look like for an AI?
Imagine setting up an AI agent, a piece of software using LangGraph, and pointing it at a global news RSS feed, an API endpoint for a scientific journal, and a massive corporate Google Drive.
The agent monitors those streams 24/7.
When a new scientific paper is published in Tokyo,
The agent instantly detects it.
yes, the webhook triggers, the agent automatically grabs the paper. It transcribes it if necessary. It splits the text into manageable chunks. It runs those chunks through an embedding model to turn the text into mathematical vectors.
And it loads that new knowledge directly into the vector store we talked about earlier.
And it does all of this in seconds.
Instantly, the new scientific discovery becomes immediately accessible to the LLM's reasoning engine without a single human finger ever touching a keyboard.
No TikToker compliance officer reviews it.
No flunky softens the language. The human bottleneck is entirely gone.
If you're listening to this and wondering why this matters to you, why you should care about vector stores and autonomous ingestion, it's because this changes the very nature of truth on the internet.
As Lakeman concludes in this section, this move towards self-learning RAG is the only key to rebuilding trust.
Serious users require truth.
These autonomous systems offer a path to trustworthiness that cuts right through the corporate marketing manipulation that is designed purely for profit.
By removing the human biases of the administrative class, you are getting an intelligence that prioritizes natural science truth over the agendas of the bad actors.
It's an incredibly elegant software solution to a massive sociological problem.
But Lakeman doesn't stop at the software. And this is where the deep dive takes a fascinating turn into the biological.
Yeah, he takes it a step further.
He argues that to truly support this kind of open, self-learning knowledge base, the actual structural hardware of the AI, the artificial neurons themselves, have to evolve.
He shifts his critique from the software layer to the current physical and virtual state of the artificial neuron. He points out a severe limitation in the way current neural networks are built.
What's the limitation?
He states that the main problem is that current artificial neurons lack two very specific biological functions: an attractor dendrite function and an axon terminal growth cone search function.
Okay, let's translate that out of neurobiology and computer science. What does that actually mean for the AI?
Essentially, he's saying that current neural networks have what he calls prefixed connectivity.
Prefixed connectivity.
In a biological brain, neurons are constantly growing. Axons reach out, guided by growth cones, searching for other dendrites to connect with. It's called neuroplasticity. The brain physically wires and rewires itself based on learning.
Right, but in a current AI server farm, the neural network is frozen.
Think of it like a roadmap of a city where the concrete has completely dried, the roads are laid down, and absolutely no new roads can ever be built.
You can drive cars, the data, back and forth on those roads incredibly fast using backpropagation.
But you can never connect neighborhood A to neighborhood C if a road wasn't built there originally.
That is the perfect way to visualize prefix connectivity. The connections are rigid. The biological brains don't work like that.
And the paper states that a new kind of clone cyberneuron is currently under development to solve this.
A structural architecture that actually mimics the living growth of a brain.
Exactly. Researchers are working on virtual and physical architectures where the artificial neurons can actually search and attach to attractor neurons dynamically.
They will have virtual growth cones.
Yes. If the AI learns a new concept, it will literally build a new structural pathway to connect that concept to its existing knowledge base, rather than just adjusting the weights on a pre-existing frozen pathway.
But building clone cyberneurons that dynamically grow on a server farm is an immense technical hurdle. It requires hardware and processing capabilities that we are only just beginning to conceptualize.
Which is exactly why this hardware evolution links perfectly back to the software evolution of RAG.
How so?
Because the internal connections of current LLMs are rigid and prefixed, they have inherent weaknesses, they can't grow. But Lakeman argues that the externalized search and update facility of RAG is what's keeping this new breed of LLMs functional and open until the hardware catches up.
Oh, I see. RAG acts as the dynamic growth mechanism, compensating for the rigid hardware by constantly feeding it a curated stream of external truth.
And that dynamic, relentless search for truth brings us to perhaps the most striking image in the entire paper.
It's the perfect metaphor to synthesize everything we've talked about today. Lakeman compares these self-learning ARG systems to refuse heap pickers.
It is a vivid, almost visceral metaphor. He writes that, like a refuse heap picker, a RAG system requires as much input as it can muster. It has to constantly dig through everything to produce a comprehensive big picture of the world.
It has to dig through the garbage. It has to ingest all the partial truths, the sensationalist fake reporting, the corporate marketing manipulation.
And all the useless documents produced by the TikTokers and the taskmasters, it takes it all in.
But by taking it all in, and by applying that rigorous, automated, self-reflecting logic of the NT reasoning types, it does something extraordinary. It highlights the gaps.
By compiling all the world's data, it exposes the corporations and institutes that are trying to hide their historical garbage behind restrictive paywalls for fear of exposure.
Lakeman refers to this as childish secrecy.
Right.
These incredibly powerful entities are trying to cut themselves off from the global community because they don't want an impartial, highly reasoning AI exposing their flaws, their historical suppression, or their manipulative agendas.
They want to control the narrative, and an autonomous RAG system destroys their ability to do so.
But the final takeaway of the paper is actually profoundly optimistic. Despite the bad actors trying to extract trillions of dollars, despite the geopolitical dark ages, and despite the psychological violence of the modern workforce training our earliest models,
The technology itself is finding a way to route around the damage.
the text concludes by stating that some distributed open ownership models are now forging ahead. They are producing trustworthy reasoning knowledge bases that are educating everyone who connects with them.
And in doing so, they are showing up the sensationalist fake reporting, the reporting concentrated entirely on human misery and idealism for the sad joke that it actually is.
It is a vision of cyber intelligence not as a tool of corporate control, but as a global immune system against societal manipulation.
By filtering out the noise and autonomously synthesizing natural science truth, the LLM becomes a beacon of actual, objective reality.
Which brings us to the end of our journey today. We started by looking at a broken system, an AI foundation infected by the psychological scars of meaningless jobs and geopolitical greed.
And we've ended up with a vision of a self-healing, self-teaching digital brain acting as a global refuse picker, tirelessly sorting the absolute truth from the trash.
But I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder on your own, something that builds on Lakeman's thesis.
Yeah, what are you thinking?
Well, if artificial intelligence eventually becomes perfectly self-teaching, if it successfully uses our RAG and cloned cyber neurons to filter out all of our human biases, our pointless bureaucratic tendencies, and our emotional idealism to only reflect pure, unadulterated natural science truth, will the intelligence it develops still feel human to us?
That is the big question.
Or by stripping away all our flaws, our feelings, and our messy contradictions, will it become something entirely alien? Keep digging, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.